Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Canucks Conversation, delivered to you by the great folks at DoorDash.
Ding dong.
Use promo code CONVODD, capital C, capital D's, all one word, CONVODD. That will get you 25% off and free delivery on your first order with the DoorDash app. Does not get much better than that, folks. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I'm joined, as always, by the man who built the place, Chris Faber. Our technical producer is Alex Allard. High above Rogers Arena, this is the Canucks Conversation. Do we still call it the Canucks Conversation Podcast? Or I like Canucks Conversation Live. I think that's a good name.
More people listen to the podcast than they do watch the YouTube, which is good because my green screen, I don't know what's going on back there again. I got a green screen problem. This whole thing, I tell you what, you and all the bosses there at Nation Network, I haven't talked to them yet, but
you just slagging them on the show.
Yeah, I've been slagging them on the show, but I have got a booklet, 75-page booklet full of things that I have to bring up with them because there, Alex has got at least me and Alex were on the same team here. You guys and your higher ups here, but I'm not going to throw the union word around, but I have in the past. Okay. We want fair work and fair pay. Better working conditions is what we need.
Yeah. So
I will be having, you see, I got my connections, the PPWC, the good folks over there. Public and Private Workers of Canada Union.
Okay.
We'll see what they're up to this week. We'll have a talk with them.
Harman Dayal. Speaking of people we're gonna have a talk to, Harman Dayal is going to.
Let me tell you this right off the top.
Well, hang on a sec. Harman's going to join the show, and before we get to your little pickleball story, we should mention that all of our guests are brought to you by the great folks at Zephyr Epic. You can use promo code Hockey Season, capital H, capital S, all one word, Hockey Season. That will give you $5 off your order at zephyrepic.com. ZEPHYR Epic. Check them out on all platforms as Chris holds up a Raichu.
Oh, it's
is it
Raichu,
or do you pronounce, is there another syllable in there?
It's Raichu.
Raichu?
Raichu.
Okay. So like Haichu, but with rye.
Yeah.
Rye bread.
Yep.
Okay. Rye bread flavored Haichu.
Gorgeous card. Yeah, just saying. Good card.
Great card. Great card. Check them out at Zephyr Epic.
Good folks over there at the Zephyr Epic. With the show and with I need the Canucks to go on the road again, so I don't have to get a morning skate, because then I can get out there to our friends over at Zephyr Epic down in the South Surrey area, or Central to South Surrey area. They got the shop down there. I'm going to get back there and we'll have some packs, and we'll start to do some. We'll open up some cards here as we talk about our guests and stuff like that. So, but yeah, Harm's going to join us here in about 10-15 minutes.
10-15 minutes. You went on a little pickleball adventure with Harman.
Buddy, me and Harm.
Harman told us about this new hobby of his, playing pickleball on the show. Jason Bruff's talked about it on Halford and Bruff in the morning.
See, here we go. The damn green screen.
Well, you've got a green racket. Of course that's going to happen.
Put that on the... Hold on. Let me write this down on the damn list here.
So Harman talked about his new hobby of playing pickleball, and he's talked about it with us before, and you went and did it with him yesterday. I was in Nanaimo. I might talk about it soon on the show, why I was there, but I don't want to put the chicken before the egg. Or no, that's not the saying. What's the saying?
The dog before the bull.
That's not it either.
The horse before the carriage, I believe, is what it is.
Or the cart. No, you would put the horse before the cart.
The cart before the horse. Yeah.
Okay. What a start.
Look at Harm. Okay, Harm, we'll talk about this more when we get in there. Harm and I walked in there, right? First, the pickleball, you just rotate around. I had a blast doing it, and I'm sore today. I'm feeling it in my glutes. What's this part here? The quads.
The quads.
Yeah, feeling it in the quads and my glutes, because it's a lot of work. And Harm and I, we play one game. We're like, okay, we get it. Let's play against Ann and Pam, like a pair of ladies in their 50s, probably in their 50s. You can see her right there. There's Pam in the back in the blue of the video. So we played against them, and we were humbled. We were extremely humbled in that game. We lost 11-2 to Pam and Ann, and then they split Harm and I up because we were like, we're fine. We're okay players, but everyone was just dusting us. So we got split up pretty quickly in that game, and then we had a lot of fun. Then we were rotating around. I had a blast. I had a really good time. The community was awesome. Everyone was really nice. They were very helpful with us as our first night, learning all the rules and everything. And yeah, just an overall good experience. We'll talk more about it with Harm when he gets on here on the show.
It seems like a fun sport. It seems like something that's,
Yeah, but I got to tone it down. I can't be telling everyone about it. That's what everyone happens when they play pickleball. They get all excited about it and they get obsessed and talk about it all the time. So I'm trying not to do that, but we'll talk about it with Harm a little bit later on. Aside from that, how was your weekend?
Fantastic. I as you worked your favors or your quads, I worked my favors.
What's that?
You
went to Nanaimo.
Yeah, I went to Nanaimo. I was trying to make a joke. It didn't really land because I screwed it up. But
no, I mean, yeah,
went to Nanaimo. And you know what? I got to tell you,
you
were underselling Nanaimo a little bit.
No, I wasn't underselling it.
I
never undersell Nanaimo.
I said, hey, is there anything to check out in Nanaimo?
Mhm.
And you said the ferry terminal. Basically, you said go home.
No.
You told me to turn around.
No, that's what I said when you go through Duncan. The best part about Duncan is getting on the other side. Nanaimo's beautiful. You got a bunch of great spots.
Well, I asked you what to do, and you said like, calamari.
Yeah, Blueberry Calamari at Longwood. Shout out to them. But you asked like, what's a good coffee shop to go to? And Nanaimo's changing so much, and even since I left there, so I don't know what the new coffee shops are. I remember Drip was a good one, but it's not like there's a famous coffee shop you got to.
Well, we went to Woodgrove Mall.
That's where. Back in the day, you should have went to the A&W there. Support them. That's where I used to manage that A&W.
Well, it was a lot of fun. Like that mall was pretty great. It was a good mall.
It's a solid mall. Solid island mall. Yep.
Yeah, it was super fun. Went to the mall. Yeah, I'm not gonna say what we were there for yet, but I might at a future day. I don't want to put the cow before the horse, right?
Yeah. Or the chicken.
Let's
get into the Canucks. Building on a win streak we got out here on the first thing on the bottom there. Because they got a 2-game win streak. Looking for 3 games tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll have some questions about what a 3-game win streak looks like a little bit later on in the show, but Vegas is coming into town after the Canucks had Saturday and Sunday off. Vegas obviously just played against the Edmonton Oilers. If you watched Hockey Night in Canada, you saw that game. I know I spent a decent amount of time watching that one and watching Connor McDavid almost score the goal of the year on that little spinorama move that he pulled at the blue line there. Almost scored the goal of the year, but then just scores a beautiful goal in overtime to win it for the Oilers. But a good pushback from the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, the thing that I was taking away from that game, and this is what I've been talking to players about over the last kind of 24 hours, our last 2 media availabilities, is this Vegas Golden Knights team, man, they make breakouts hard, right? And I think that's what's given the Canucks so much problems against the Vegas Golden Knights since they've come into the league, is they just seem to be a team that's so good at disrupting breakouts. And let's be honest, the Canucks are not the best team in the league at creating breakouts in their own right with their defense core and their forward group that they've had shown so far this season. So I think that is a little bit of a worry for me going into tonight's game. Not a little bit, it's a big worry. That's the biggest worry I have for the Canucks, is how can they break out the puck against this very aggressive Vegas Golden Knights team? And the Golden Knights, I think it's 3 of their last 4 they're taking L's. So like they're going to want to look here to get back on track and beat the Canucks, who obviously haven't had a good start to this season. But on the other end of the spectrum there, of the wins and loss spectrum, the Canucks, they're coming off of 2 straight wins. They've had a weekend off to kind of reset, relax. I think let that confidence maybe kind of sink in a little bit more to Thatcher Demko, who's going to be in net tonight. I think it's going to be a nice little exciting game. 7:30 puck drop, so a little bit later. But we can get to some of the lineup changes here too, because I know you want to get on this, Quads. Riley Stillman, he is still the man beside Tyler Myers on that third pairing. Jack Rathbone, Kyle Burrows, they were out on the ice skating late. Niels Höglander as well. So it looks like Vasily Podkolzin is going to draw back in. That's exactly what Bruce Boudreau told us. Thoughts on the lineup, Quads? What do you got?
I mean, you like to see Vasily Podkolzin get back in.
Yeah, no bubble either.
Not wearing the full face shield, which he said that he hated and wanted to get off as soon as he could. So good for Podkolzin that he's recovering a bit and he's able to take that off. When you look at this lineup, I don't really think there's too much to kind of point to and say, oh, this is a problem. But you almost wish that they could find a way to get Niels Höglander in, right? Like, I understand Nils Amon hasn't played himself out of the 4th line center role. Like, I understand he hasn't done that. I understand Sheldon Dries looks like he's gotten a lot of chances, but was Podkolzin, or excuse me,
I think just quickly, as Sheldon Dries, I think he's been on the ice for the last 5-on-5 goals against.
Yeah, like
so
he's looked like the king of looking like he's about to get a good scoring chance, but not being able to finish it. And I understand you have to be good to get in those positions to make scoring chances. I'm not even trying to slag on Sheldon Dries. There's no point doing that. But what I'm trying to say is, it almost goes back to the same philosophy I had and that I was talking about a lot when Jack Rathbone was on the outside looking in, was that like Niels Höglander has a future with this organization. Sheldon Dries, not so much. Like he does have a future with the organization. What I mean by that is that Niels Höglander is going to grow as a player. And if the Canucks do everything right, he's going to grow into a really good middle 6 player. Sheldon Dries, I think the Canucks, if they do everything right, I think the most Sheldon Dries could become is basically what he is right now. Right? Kind of that guy who you can call up in a pinch, can play on in your bottom 6 as a center, but he's not someone that you have, this long-term vested interest in that you do with Höglander, right? Where you're like, okay, well, we got to get this guy in the lineup. I think at this point in time, and I understand the Canucks won their past 2 games, you have to find a way to get Nils Höglander in the lineup. I think that's my only gripe. And obviously, I'm not even going to start with Stillman. We've said it before. I don't want every episode of this show just to be, hey, folks, the Canucks are near the bottom of the league and they're making weird lineup decisions. I don't want that to be every episode of this show. We've talked about Burrows and Stillman enough. It's the same thing. Bruce Boudreau talked about how, Burrows is a 7th defenseman and he knows that. And Burrows talking about it was like, yeah, I'm a 7th defenseman and I like to, play better than that when I'm in the lineup. And that's the thing. Is he has played better than that.
Yeah,
and he should be in this lineup. That's what it really comes down to, is that Kyle Burrows should be in this lineup. We know it. A lot of people seem to know it. But you know what? Like, Bruce clearly likes the lefty-righty thing, right? And again, I don't agree with it. I don't think it matters, especially when you're choosing over Burrows or Stillman. I really don't think it matters. But, like, Stillman's this team's only lefty that they're going to be putting in the lineup. And Rathbone, that's a conversation for another day. This guy's got to start playing games. If it's not in the NHL, it's got to be in the AHL.
Yeah, I agree with you at that point. Maybe you can pull up the quotes here, Alex, of Kyle Burrows talking about him in his role, as we're just a few minutes away from Harm as well, joining us here in just a minute. I'm sure we'll get his thoughts on this. So I asked Kyle Burrows, let's get to the quotes here. I asked him if he's meeting the expectations of the coach up to this point, and I found this was very interesting. This whole section of quotes, I just want to read through them, because this was my big takeaway from Saturday's media availability. What Burrows said was, those expectations that he has for me, I think I hold myself maybe a little bit more, maybe to a little bit more, I should say. And he says, when I do come into play, I want to play well. I want to be something that can add to this team. If I'm just being simple, playing hard to play against, being a prick, playing against other teams' top lines, or anybody up and down the score sheet, like, he just wants to be able to contribute to this team, right? Like, that's the big thing that Kyle Burrows wants to do. And it's been tough to see that he's not been in the lineup. And maybe you can pull up the quote from Boudreau now, Alex, Boudreau talking about Kyle Burrows as well, because I found that this quote was, I think, more interesting. This is what Boudreau said about Burrows. He said, he knows what his role is. He's a 7th D. He works hard. He practices hard. And when he gets in, he's got to always be ready. That's his role, and he knows it. I think that role and the combination of the quote that Kyle Burrows started his with was like, listen, he's been all you could ask for from a 7th defenseman and more. And I key in on more, because I do think that he has more to give than be a 7th defenseman, especially on what this Canucks team is looking like. Like, when I there was a question in the mailbag today, and somebody asked, like, which defenseman from this roster should be around for the future of the Vancouver Canucks? And I thought Kyle Burrows actually is one of them. Like, this is a local guy who,
I like that,
who loves this team, wants to just do whatever it takes to win, and clearly is, like, content in his role right now with the Vancouver Canucks as a 7th defenseman, because he just values the chance to play every day in the NHL, and not even play, just be around an NHL team. He just values the chance to be an NHLer. And I think being the local guy, he cares about this team. And we've talked about this in the past of, like, if you just want guys that are good in the room and can help you move forward, whether it be through a rebuild or whether it be through tough times, Kyle Burrows to me is like a slam dunk player to be in that spot. And I also look at Luke Schenn as another option for that, but Luke Schenn's getting older, and I do think he's going to have some value on the trade market this year, more value than Kyle Burrows will, for sure. So I thought that, Kyle Burrows has, like, a long-term, whether in long-term, I'm talking like next 2 to 3, 4 years, as a 7th defenseman on your team, if you can get him at very cheap, absolutely. I think he's one of the guys that you could long-term be happy with moving forward on this team.
I mean, he's kind of like what you think you would want in Luke Schenn, right? And I mean, it's a similar philosophy when people talk about, the thought of keeping Luke Schenn, right? And it doesn't look like it's going to be possible, but he's a culture carrier, right? Like, Kyle Burrows is also a culture carrier.
And here's a thought on that is, like, think about how many glue guys this team has, right? Like, yeah. I don't know, man. I'm around the rink all the time now, talking to people, talking to the coaches, talking to people in the organization, talking to all their other media members, and it just,
something feels off.
There's just something stinky about it, man. Like, just, I don't know, from how the players are put into situations to deal with the media, how players are in the room with each other, how things at practice go down. Like, it's just, it's not a great feeling, I feel like. And I don't think it's just the losing. I think it's something about the room right now. Like, it is something off, man. It's weird to kind of, like, it's not like there's one thing you can point to. It's literally just like a feeling that you're kind of getting from this team. And maybe it looks a little different when people are at the rink and just going to the games, but I don't know. There's something I don't like. There's something a little stinky about what's going on with this team. And I do think that for that reason, like you look and they're like, oh, they're 3 points out of a playoff spot. It's like, yeah, but I don't think this is the group to do it, man. Like I'm still in the camp of things need to be moved around here for this team to actually take any significant steps forward here.
Yeah, and I think when you go through a retool, a rebuild, whatever, you're
Mm.
looking for those guys that can stick through it, right? The guys that you want to kind of be
Sure.
there. And that's the thing, is you don't want to pay a premium for this leadership to get you through a rebuild. Cough, cough, JB.
A couple glue guys would really help, right? And
yeah, but you don't need to pay a premium for
no,
them.
and that's what I'm saying with Curtis Lazar at $1 million next 3 years. Perfect glue guy. He's now like the go-to guy in the media right now because he gives great quotes and he's always in a positive mindset. Glue guy around the room. I really think Dakota Joshua, just from seeing like his interactions with players in the locker room, I think he's also another example of a glue guy. And I think Burrows is another one as well. It's just, how many glue guys does it take? And I look back and I'm like, hey, you know who had a lot of glue guys when they were winning a lot of games was the Pittsburgh Penguins under Jim Rutherford. That room, you heard stories about it. I remember I was talking to Randeep about this, who knew a lot of players on that Pittsburgh team, and actually was in the Stanley Cup parade, as people have heard on this podcast in the past. So like he was saying, like how many glue guys that Pittsburgh team had was incredible. And I wonder if the Canucks need that moving forward here as their next kind of step. Let's get to another glue guy on this podcast. Normally starts to keep in between us here, keep us back on the rails. Harman Dayal is going to join us here. And speaking of stepping up, we talked about that with some of these guys. Harm, getting you on the show here. We were stepping up last night. I don't know how you were in the pickleball, but I kept rolling into the kitchen a couple times too many in the pickleball here. Do we got Harman, Alex? We're still waiting on Harman?
We shouldn't be. Alex told us Harman's set.
Oh, geez, Harman, he's in bed
So
again.
little story while we wait for Harman.
Okay.
So one time, Alex's power went out. It was the first show.
Oh, that's right.
Was it not? It was the first live show we ever did. Alex's power went out. Harman's here, but I'm going to continue telling the story. And we were just frozen on Faber's screen for a good minute and a half. And I started talking. It was just frozen on you reacting. And then Alex came back in the nick of time, saved the day, like he did this time as well. Harman Dayal from The Athletic joins us. Harman, how you doing today?
Doing great, guys. How are you? How legs keeping up there, Faber?
Oh, man. I am sore today, I tell you that. It was it's all the crouching and the back and forth and getting in and out of the kitchen, as some of the pickleball termage that we verbiage that we learned yesterday. I had a good time. We got the video up here right now. Harm, you looking good. How did you feel from start to finish there on the old pickleball courts?
Well, it's funny because on the car ride there, I was warning you that from my experience picking up badminton in the summer, you think that going into these drop-in community center games that were some of the youngest guys there, and you think you're going to be athletic and pick it up right away, especially because we've both played sports in the past and we pick things up pretty easy. And then you quickly just realize that, oh no, it's not really about athleticism at all. It's about pattern recognition and all these things. And I remember in the community center with badminton getting dusted really early. So despite that, in pickleball, it's funny because in the second game, we felt confident enough to play with each other and then got dusted 11-2 by those older women in their 50s. But no, by the end of it, I felt a lot more comfortable. It, again, just felt like something that you need anticipation for, and you can't just rely on your raw athleticism. So
before we get to the Canucks here, I also thought it was funny on the drive back when I was driving Harm home. Harm, you're bringing up like the analytics behind serving first and serving second in the game on the way in. You're like, yeah, but I think like a 55% chance if you're serving first.
Well, yeah, because
ahead.
Okay, because listen, I was thinking like it's arbitrary in terms of who starts with the serve. And you can only, in pickleball, it's not like badminton where you can pick up points when you're receiving. You can only get points when you're serving. So Faber gives up. We had the ball. He gave up the serve to the other ladies. I'm like, Faber, dude, what are you doing? And they racked up like 4 or 5 points. It was 4-5-0 before we even got the serve back. I was like, that right there, like duked our chances.
That's a rookie mistake. And Harman and I haven't talked about this. I mean, I don't even think I told you. Harman and I had a pretty good table tennis match in Edmonton.
Oh, yeah, we did.
It was a really good game. We played like 5 games. I think it was best of 3. And I'll tell you what, Toronto Maple Leafs did. I had a 2-game lead on Harman out of nowhere. And I didn't even know I could play ping pong, to be honest with you. But it was fun. We had a lot of fun. And then I had a 2-game lead. And then we stopped having fun because Harman came back. And Faber holds up his pickleball racket. Harman came back. You know, I like I said, I Leafsed it. So you know what happened next. Harman came back, won 3 straight games. I'd never seen anything like it.
Unbelievable.
First round exit.
Oh, tough. All right, let's get to the Vancouver Canucks a little bit, Harm. We'll get started with some of the lineup decisions today. We've talked about it a lot. I don't think we probably even talked about it last time you were on with us, but it looks like Riley Stillman's going to stay back in the lineup with Tyler Myers again today. Also, Vasily Podkolzin heading in instead of Niels Höglander. Where do you take as the biggest takeaway here from what we're going to see in the lineup tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights? And what one change would you make if you could make one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one change that we'd all be in agreement on that we've mentioned in the past is the decision to have Stillman in the lineup, period. I mean, even in what was it, the last game where he tried to it was sort of at the end of the period and he tried to clear the puck right up the middle and it led to a scoring chance against I think it was that Kings game actually.
Yeah.
And it was just like in that moment, I think it said a lot about, I mean, not that one play is going to be illustrative of a player's entire toolkit, but I think it was a reminder that Stillman just can't make plays with the puck. He doesn't have, and it's not just being able to handle it and having the stick handling ability, but the decision making and the game awareness where you have the puck behind the net. There's like 2 seconds left. Just rim it around the boards in that instance, right? You have to have, if you're a defenseman, physical sort of guy, you got to have at least one of the two in terms of puck handling or smart decision making. You can't have both. Otherwise, you just can't be trusted. And that's where Stillman, even without the puck, you see sometimes with his defensive reads, especially below the hash marks, that he's out of position sometimes. I think back to, for example, even the Minnesota game where, ironically, he and Burrows were playing on a pair together, and he kind of Burrows was kind of already in the corner, and he also went in there, and they left the net front guy wide open. So it feels like Boudreaux just has Burrows in his mind kind of pigeonholed as a number 7 guy for whatever reason, despite how well he's played. So that's, I think, one change in terms of the forward group. And I think this has a bigger long-term impact is I think it's going to be fascinating to see how the Canucks manage Podkolzin and Höglander for the rest of the season, because I think to this point, it's kind of been, at least lately, with both of them kind of struggling to hit the score sheet. You can see that they're kind of rotating in and out of the press box. I think in Podkolzin's case, he's played really well, and it's a case of, in the last few games, he maybe hasn't had his confidence, but I think he's been due for better luck. With Höglander, it's interesting, though, because I think he's almost at a point now where I've been wondering if he's just going to be in and out of the press box and playing in the bottom 6 and kind of pigeonholed into playing this energy line sort of role, which, don't get me wrong, he showed a lot of positive things in that capacity. I wonder if at what point you start considering sending him down to Abbotsford and putting him in a position where he can play top minutes, grow his game offensively, because, again, I like a lot of his work on the forecheck. I like how he's using his speed to make little plays, win little battles, make plays on the defensive half wall to lead clean exits up the ice. But I'm not seeing the same dynamic offensive traits, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily because he's playing with less talented line mates, maybe, even though he's still been on that line with Brock Besser. I don't know if it's a confidence thing, if he feels that he's now in a role where he's worried about if I make a mistake, I'm going to be back in the press box. I don't know what it is, but it feels like he's lost a little bit of his offensive spark. And moving forward, I know he has legit middle 6 potential, so I want him back in that offensive mindset, and I wonder at what point could he be potentially better served down in Abbotsford.
Another guy that we haven't necessarily talked about, it feels like lately he just hasn't been talked about a lot, is Jack Rathbone. Like, he had that rough game and he came out and nobody really said anything about it after that. Rathbone's sitting in the press box right now. Like, what do you make of that, and what should the Canucks do with this guy?
It's tough because he simply doesn't look NHL ready. To be honest, whenever he's factored into the lineup, for starters, context is important, where he was kind of thrown into a tough scenario when he first got into the lineup where he hadn't played for a really long time, and all of a sudden he was airdropped in for the home opener at a time where the Canucks still hadn't gotten a win, and the crowd was obviously really antsy and on edge, and being deployed into that role, especially that deep into the season where you know that the coach doesn't have a lot of faith in you. I can imagine that it's not an ideal headspace to be in as a player, especially when you haven't, again, played since preseason. So I can understand why he struggled initially, but even when he drew back in, he's had issues managing the puck. His passes have been off the mark. This is a guy who needs to be able to transition well and be solid on defensive zone exits to make a legit NHL impact. And we just haven't seen it so far. It just feels like he's not able to find his forwards as sticks on a consistent enough basis when he is trying to make plays. And when you don't have that and you compound that with some of the mistakes that he's made defensively, for example, in the game against I think, was it Ottawa or Montreal, where I think it was Montreal maybe, where I think it was Montreal, where he fumbled the puck at the offensive blue line and the Habs counterattacked and scored. Those plays sort of add up, and I can't say that he's deserved an opportunity to be in the NHL lineup. But in having said that, he hasn't played for a long time either, and considering the fact that he is on a one-way contract, so he's going to make the same amount of money whether he's in the NHL or the AHL, I would really consider sending him down to Abbotsford at some point and at least getting him some minutes, allow him to build his confidence back up. Because if he was on a two-way contract, I think you'd look at that situation and say, you're going to piss the guy off by him having to take such a significant pay cut by going down. But it's on a one-way deal. He's not going to be making any less money. So at some point, you just got to give him game reps, especially because ever since signing, he's barely played professional games, period. Whether it's been the 2021 campaign where we had taxi squads and the AHL season was delayed. Even last season when he came to, I think, getting COVID, injuries, starting last season in Vancouver as a similar sort of situation as last season. He just hasn't played a lot and he hasn't gotten a lot of game reps in. So, I mean, I'm at the point now where I don't have a ton of faith, truthfully, in terms of his potential NHL upside. But all you can do, I think, at this point is you've got to let him play as opposed to just rot it, at least in the American League, as opposed to just kind of sitting and doing nothing in the press box.
Absolutely. I think to get back to the lineup a little bit, I wanted to ask, so you look at the fourth line. I think a lot of people have liked the fourth line, and then I'm talking about Dakota Joshua playing alongside Neil Zaman and Curtis Lazar. I think that trio has looked good. They were also together at training camp. It's been a line that Bruce Boudreau likes to go with. But because of that being your fourth line, we are seeing Sheldon Dries play a third line center role right now with some more talented players, like whether it be a Niels Höglander, Vasily Podkolzin. Seems like Brock Besser's the one who's sticking there. Would you make adjustments to that fourth line to maybe give a little bit more firepower? Like, is Curtis Lazar moving up to play 3C an idea? Is Dakota Joshua, he's played some center. He's been pretty good at being a playmaker, I think, in his fourth line role. Is there something you might want to mix up there with Sheldon Dries, or is he your best bet right now at 3C?
It is something that I've been wondering about. I think I wouldn't mind giving Lazar a couple more games just to really. I know he looked great in coming back to the lineup last game, but give him a couple more games to get his feet under him. Then at that point, I do think I would consider potentially shifting him up the lineup, especially because when I look at the current mix, even when it comes to the top line, for example, Horvat, Miller, and Garland, that line's played well in general, and they've created a lot of zone time. And I think Horvat and Miller work really well as north-south players. I just don't quite see the fit with Connor Garland yet. I know there's been flashes where he's been able to work in that spot, but it feels like there's been a lot of situations where that line will create some type of offensive possession, but Garland's maybe fumbling pucks along the walls or behind the net, and he just hasn't been able to make, I think, a consistent impact. I just don't see chemistry with Garland with those two guys yet. Horvat and Miller have been good enough to this point that it hasn't mattered, but I even wonder about that trio. I mean, you can obviously keep them together just because the team's been winning for now, and I think that's the argument for keeping things intact for now is I completely understand letting things stay the way they are, but maybe in a couple of games, if you've lost a game here or there, I think you've got to rethink, even if it's that role. I mean, I think about Höglander. We just spoke about what do you do with him as one last shot. I wouldn't mind giving him a run on that top line with Horvat and Miller in that spot, just because the one center that Höglander's actually had success with in his NHL career is Bo Horvat. That was the trio that worked really well with Horvat, Pearson, and Höglander in his rookie season. And I just haven't seen Höglander fit that well with any other center to this point. So if there's one last shot you want to make for getting Höglander back on track before you consider using him in a different spot, I'd consider maybe him in the Garland sort of role. And even with then Garland maybe figuring out a spot further down the lineup a little bit. Maybe it reinforces your third line. I just it feels like we're still one or two moves away. And with Sheldon Dry specifically, he's had his fair share of chances, but that line I think has struggled defensively. So I don't think we've quite found the right top 9 fit yet. But I think we're just gonna have to stick with the status quo as long as the team's winning.
Yep, I think I'm with you on that one. Harm, appreciate you joining us here, and stay out of the kitchen, bud. Appreciate it.
Will do. Thanks, boys.
There he is. Harman Dayal joining us there. Little pickleball joke there.
Oh, that's a pickleball joke.
Pickleball joke, yeah.
Okay, great. I'm glad you did. Our thanks to Harman for joining us. And again, all of our guests brought to you by Zephyr Epic.
Oh, good folks over there at Zephyr Epic.
Free shipping on any order Canada-wide, on any order over $50. They got you covered for all your trading card needs. You don't have it ready, do you?
Oh,
You got
I don't.
2 cities? I knew you did.
Not 2 cities. Two
It's
cities later in the week. It's a treat when we get 2 cities. It's not every show like it used to.
Yeah, but be sure to go check out Zephyr Epic at their retail location in Surrey and online at Zephyr.
And you run into that. You go in there and you say hockey season, hockey season, hockey season. They'll give you $5 off.
Maybe when you're making your purchase, say, "Hey, I listen to this podcast."
No, kick in the door at Zephyr Epic. They got a strong door there. I've seen it's a metal door. You can kick in the door there and tell them hockey season.
Canucks Convo is not liable for these comments from Chris Faber.
Don't kick the door too hard.
Don't kick it too hard.
But if you use your foot sideways.
Okay. Enough.
Push it on the right.
I wanted to talk about something.
No, I got a whole segment here that's questions for you. Questions.
Okay.
So this is a fun.
You go ahead.
No, if you got something.
Well, no, you got something to say. Go ahead.
Well, so do you apparently.
Of course I do. I always got something to say.
Okay, quickly you go, then I'll get to my thing here.
Well, I just wanted to talk about that Huglander with Horvat thing.
Okay.
It kind of goes back to this problem that we've seen, and it's a problem that the Canucks have. Not a ton of other rebuilding teams seem to have, but you have these players who have this upside, like this middle six upside, and you don't really give them a chance to find out what they are because you're trying to be competitive. And yeah, right now, Connor Garland is a better winger than Niels Huglander. And this isn't just a hindsight thing. If you weren't trying so hard to compete, you never make the trade for OEL Garland. You keep your first round pick. You keep this prospect. You keep all the assets that you gave up to acquire OEL's contract and Connor Garland being the sweetener there. Because right now, Connor Garland's blocking a spot for Niels Huglander in the NHL
this team
lineup.
Didn't build themselves up to be a rebuilding team.
And that's the thing. Yeah. And that's the thing is it's just another instance of you looking back at it and saying, damn, okay, like it's kind of a misstep to have Connor Garland in this lineup. And again, like when people say things like, no, don't trade Garland, I like him, or don't trade this guy, I like him, that's great. But when this team's ready to compete, Connor Garland's probably not going to be a big part of the picture.
Especially and with wingers coming up. Like if you have any prospects coming, they are wingers. And they're probably pretty similar to Garland.
The way I almost look at it is if Connor Garland came up in the Canucks system, he probably never becomes Connor Garland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he probably gets blocked by another Connor Garland or Tanner. Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to name names. I'm just saying in the sense of, you know, a young Connor Garland comes up in the Canucks system, but he can't get NHL minutes because this fourth liner and this guy is ahead of him on the depth chart, and he hasn't had a chance for himself. In Arizona, the guy got a lot of chances. And he, you know, again, I'm not saying the Canucks need to become Arizona. Nobody wants to see that, but you do want a guy like Niels Huglander to get time in. And again, Harman pointed at the top line, and you see Connor Garland's name there, and you just look at it like, what are we doing here? Like,
right.
This is why people keep saying, okay, you got to blow it up. Like, you got to do something. You're not competing with this team. That's just the way it is.
That's a really interesting way of looking at a rebuilding team that probably doesn't get talked about a lot. Is a part of a rebuilding team is giving Niels Huglander top 6 minutes, is making sure Vasily Podkolzin's in the lineup every night.
And to a lesser extent, playing Jack Rathbone.
Yeah, or that is like that's probably a part of rebuilding that never gets talked about is the development of actually getting your young players into NHL minutes, right? Like, yeah, that's a massive thing, I think. And listen, I don't think the Arizona Coyotes are doing that. It seems like they have to fill their roster full of players that, you know, need to just kind of hit the salary cap floor. But you think of like think of the LA Kings, right? Like the LA Kings over the past couple seasons, they've played a lot of young players, and they've also given a lot of young players very good opportunity in the AHL too, right? Like players that they've had in their system, they've had a super young, super exciting AHL team, like the Ontario Reign, Ontario, California, as you learned. The Ontario Reign have been an exciting team to watch in the AHL, and now you see what they're doing now. It's like they were like last year, I'd say they were relying on their young guys to just play. Now it's like there's a little bit more of an expectation from them, but they're now relying on guys like Kevin Fiala. That's why they went out and traded for a player like him. They're still relying on Anze Kopitar, but it felt like last year they put something on these young guys to do something last year, right? And to get that opportunity. Now it's like, okay, they expect a little more. With Nils Höglander, it's like, from what he's done this season and how he's been used, do you expect more this season than you did last year from Nils Höglander? I don't think so.
I don't think with the way he's being used,
That's an interesting part of development here, is like, make there be a little bit of a higher expectation every year for these young guys as they develop. And if you start them low, like think about how Höglander came in, right? Top 6 guy right off the bat, playing with Horvat Pearson. Like,
but sorry,
you want to build expectations up. You don't want to just throw them in there and then just let them drop off. Like, I think that's a big part of development that hurts prospects, is dropping the expectations. And that's what's happened.
And that's the thing, is the whole reason that Höglander was playing right from training camp in the top 6 was because the Canucks didn't have guys ahead of him that were better.
Virtanen, Eriksson.
And that's the thing. There was a bit of outrage that Jake Virtanen wasn't getting this shot. Right. Travis Green knew the whole time. Jake Virtanen's now what? Second-tier Swiss League?
Yep.
Off his own abilities. Like, he couldn't crack the Edmonton Oilers on a PTO. We're not talking about Jake Virtanen right now. That I don't want to get too off topic, but my point is when Höglander played those minutes, it was a perfect example of what I'm talking about being put into practice, where don't go out and go get these Connor Garlands and get these players that are going to play ahead of your young players and limit their opportunities, because we're seeing it right now.
Yeah, I don't like
unless you're super competitive, then I understand it. If the Canucks were actually as good as they thought they would be, then sure, maybe the Garland trade makes a little bit of sense. But they aren't, and they weren't, and that's where we are now. And again, I don't even want to get into
tough spot. Okay, let's go. I got this thing. I wrote this out here for us here. What do you do with is what it's called. So Quads, I'll ask you the question. I'll hear your answer, and then I'll respond to your answer and tell you if I think you're correct or incorrect. What do you do with Jack Rathbone, who has only played 6 of the 18 games this season? Quads, what do you do with Jack Rathbone?
In a perfect world?
Yeah. Well, what? No, I'm saying, like, you're in control. What do you do with Jack Rathbone?
Find a way to get rid of Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Find a way to get rid of Tyler Myers and play Stillman, Burrows, and Rathbone all together. Who cares? Like,
and Bear, yep.
And Bear. Well, Bear, speaking of guys that I think are going to stick with this team.
Yeah, I wrote about that today, too.
You did. Ethan Bear. Like, I think Ethan Bear's been very impressive.
I think as a third pairing puck mover, absolutely. I've really
absolutely
liked
fine
Ethan
on your
so
team.
far. But so Jack Rathbone, you move everyone else.
Yeah, get the guy minutes. And you know what? In all seriousness,
good luck moving OEL.
Yeah, exactly. In all seriousness, I understand it's hard to move OEL. It's hard to move Myers. Also, we should try and get something in on the Zaitsev Myers thing that got reported, because there's a couple things.
There's nothing there.
Well, I want to get to something on that, but before that, what I want to say is, Rathbone to the AHL is what I would actually do, because that's the more feasible thing to do.
Give us your thoughts. I got a few names to run through here. What would you do with?
Put him as the number 1 guy in the AHL. Let him kill penalties. Let him do everything.
Yeah. So Brock Besser is our next one. What do you do with Brock Besser? Should he be back with Miller Horvat? Should he be playing with Pettersson? Or should he stay on a line with Sheldon Dries and one of Vasily Podkolzin and Nils Höglander? Quads, what do you do with Brock Besser?
Be ready to move him up. Guys, look, this has gone under the radar. Brock Besser's on a 6-game point streak since returning from injury, capped off by 2 goals in his last game. I've been very impressed with Brock Besser. Again, he just needs to get one, it felt like. Yep. Like, he comes into the season saying, I'm going to score 30 goals. This is the year I score 30. Gets the hand injury. I don't know if he rushed back. He was just back sooner than the timeline that was originally given. Like, he was back at the earliest possible time. Like, he didn't miss opening night. And we thought for sure he would at least miss that. And then a few other games. He didn't miss any games, but he didn't look like himself. He didn't look confident. He really did not look like himself. And then he comes back from injury. Still doesn't look spectacular, but hands down, he's looked better in his last 6 than he did in his first 6, right? And now he's on this point streak. He's got 2 goals on the season. And I quickly wanted to get this in because I wrote about it. Okay. The 5 stats that I think Canucks fans should know. It's all about streaks. That
Canucks
was
Army over there.
Yeah, over at Canucks Army. It was a little theme that I found in the article. It was these perfect halves. So the splits, obviously the first 6 games for Brock Besser, 4 assists. The final 6 games are final. The last 6 games at the time of this recording for Brock Besser is a 6-game point streak, including those 2 goals. So again, he's got 7 points in 6 games. That's pretty solid. And then for Bo Horvat, that's the one I really wrote about that I found really interesting.
Well, he's my next guy here.
Well, yeah, sure. Okay. Well, give it to me then, because I got something on
Yeah,
Horvat.
and you can go to whichever direction you want with this. Bo Horvat, what do you do with Bo Horvat? He's got 14 goals in 18 games. Should you look in an extension, or has he already priced himself out of seeing an extension with the Vancouver Canucks? Bo Horvat, what do you do with him, Wads?
I want to ask you something.
Okay.
In the final 18 games of last season, I don't know if you read my article.
Nope.
Final 18 of last season, going back to March 9th when his goal scoring streak started. How many goals do you think Bo Gilney scored to end the season? Final 18.
Final 18 games?
I'll give you a hint.
14 goals.
There you go. 14. Yep. It's exactly the same as how many he scored in the first 18. So I wrote about this. This heater isn't just coming out of nowhere.
28 goals in 36 last game.
At what point do you just say this is who Bo Horvat is? Like he's figured something out and he's scoring a lot of goals. He did it to close out last year for a good month and a half or whatever it was. And now he's out here doing it again this year. It's not just out of nowhere. Like, it's not coming out of nowhere. And again, I don't think Bo is going to finish with the 64 goals that he's on pace to score right now, but his goal scoring rate has been very, very high over the past, 36 games. Like, he's played 36 games since March 9th of last year, and he's got 28 goals in that time.
Yeah, well over the pace of scoring 40 if he continues that. And then
I think he's breaking 40 this year.
And I think that would be... Ooh, man,
he might break 20 by the end of the month.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think, with Bo Horvat, I just don't think that an extension, I think he's already priced himself out.
You asked me, what do? You trade him. It sucks, but you can't, look, there's lessons to be learned, because I've seen this thrown out there of people saying, well, Horvat just has it.
It's just trade OEL and Miller. You know how hard that's going to be?
Well, hang on.
That's work to do there. Because
people say stuff like, we'll trade Miller and sign Horvat. Learn a little bit from the Miller extension, right? And say, okay, well, we decided to extend this guy after the best season of his career, and we're not sure if he'll ever reach that again.
Yeah.
Based on his play this year, we're not sure if Miller is ever going to reach 99 points again, and he's going to be a defensive liability all the while.
Right.
No matter what he's doing offensively, and it might not be much toward the end of his career, he's probably going to be a defensive liability. And that sucks, right? But with Bo Horvat, paying the high end of what he's doing right now, if Bo puts in 40, a 40 goal scoring center,
yep.
Do you know how much that's going to cost you?
Yep.
That's going to...
You're in the nines, man.
That's over the nines. You can't... Look, people don't want to pay an 8x8 for Bo Horvat. I'm in that group. Even with this goal scoring, he's getting at least that on the open market. If he scores 40 this year, Chris, and that's why you said it.
He will be the number one free agent available.
He would be the number one free agent. He's going to make some team.
Fish.
He's going to make some team very happy. And here's the thing: it all comes down to the same philosophy that you see teams use in free agency, where they say, "Okay, well, we're all in right now. If we can get this guy right now, he's going to give us a good, solid 4 years of being a really good scorer." Right? And I think that's safe to say with Bo Horvat, at least 4 years if you sign him for 7 years. What the problem is for the Canucks is that becomes bad money down the line when the Canucks are, theoretically, you hope, in their actual competitive window. When they're trying to compete, you have this anchor contract, right?
You already got a couple of those.
And that's the thing, is that's kind of the problem that you're now finding yourself in with JT Miller. What's JT Miller look like when this team's actually competitive, right? And I think that's where it all comes back down to this idea that you just need to sit down, come up with a plan. Everybody needs to be on the plan. You need to make every move in regards to that plan, with that plan at front of mind.
Okay, I like this. What do you do with? I'm going to keep this for another day. Let's get to the prospects report and then Betway when we get out of here. I'm going to fly through this. Okay, I'm literally reading this off my page here. Danilo Klimovic, he was healthy scratch for the third time this year. He's been healthy scratch 3 times already this season. Dan Milstein talked to him today. Apparently, that is, by the way, Klimovic's agent talked to him today. They've got a plan in place for development, apparently. He couldn't get into details with me, but he is in a weekly conversation with the Vancouver Canucks organization, his agent, that is. So Milstein's talking with the Canucks about the development plan, and he said he felt good about it. So listen, he's been scratched as many times as he was all last season as an 18-year-old. I don't think that's great, but at least there's a plan and there's communication there. So at least he's in the right headspace to move forward. Connor Lockhart had 1 goal in 2 games over the weekend. Aiden McDonough had 1 goal and 1 assist in 1 game against the Boston University, I believe Boston U Terriers. He's now up to 8 goals and 10 assists in 13 NCAA games, 18 points on the season. That's good for 6th in the nation for scoring. Career Kirill Kudryavtsev, there we go. He had another strong point performance on the weekend. 3 assists in 2 games. That's the 7th-round defenseman the Canucks just drafted in the most recent draft. He's got 2 goals and 13 assists, 15 points in 21 OHL games. Elias Pettersson, defenseman over in Sweden. He played 6:44 in an SHL game on Saturday. And Philip Johansson scored a goal on Thursday. Boom, added an assist on Saturday and hit up another assist on Sunday. The guy is rolling. He's coming over to North America next year. Patrick Allvin loves him. Right shot defenseman. Boom, let's get to Betway.
Go ahead.
What do we got here, Alex? Pull it up here with my Betway bets of the day. I believe I'm a weird one. I don't hit this one normally. Hitting the under on total goals 5.5. I don't hit the under often, but at plus 125, maybe you have a good goaltending performance from both the Knights and the Canucks tonight. So sort of on this one, betting a little bit on Demko having a good night. Tonight, as well as my second bet, the bigger bet, Canucks to win over 6.5 total goals and Elias Pettersson to score a goal. This is if the Canucks just light it up and have, a good bounce back here on Monday after having a weekend off and riding into a 3-game win streak, hopefully for them. So we're getting the over, Canucks to win, and Pettersson, he's got 3 goals last 2 games. Lighten up the lamp. That's our Betway bets of the day. Betway, 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 Betway.
19 plus to play.
19 plus to play, Betway.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there.
Play responsibly.
Canucks are in. 7:30 start time tonight, folks.
Oh, late one tonight. Yep.
Stanchies will be posted the next morning.
Yeah, no chance you're going to
I'm waking up early for that, but I'm not staying up too late because I got to get up early anyways. So Stanchies are going to be posted tomorrow by 7.
Big meeting tomorrow. I got a lot to say. I got the whole booklet here.
The whole booklet. Yeah. Okay. We'll wrap it up there. For my co-host, Chris Faber, our technical producer, Alex Allard, our thanks to Harman Dayal for joining today's show, brought to you by Zephyr Epic. My name is David Quadrelli. Thank you so much, folks, for listening to another episode of the Canucks Conversation.
7:30 start time. 7:30.
Thanks for listening to Canucks Conversation, delivered by DoorDash. Hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.
How about keep it to a thank you, Jim?